Which was?
35 onwards, Mataji. Then with pranam. Hare Krishna. Second chapter 35.
35th verse. Okay, we are in the completion of now second chapter. A few verses are left. So here it is very clearly said, when a person is wandering, when a jiva is wandering in this material world, there is no auspicious means of deliverance. Because people are thinking, okay, these are the means for getting liberated. There is no auspicious means of liberation than aiming at direct devotional service to Krishna. In the 34th verse, you see the great personality Brahma with great attention, concentration, studied the Vedas 3 times. And after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Lord is only the highest perfection of religion. Further, Bhagavan Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshitah Swatmana Harihi Drishter Buddhyadhibir Drishta Lakshanai Aruna Lakshanai Anumapakaihi Bhagavan Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshitah Swatmana Harihi Drishyair buddhyadibhir drashta lakshanair anumapakaihi. So Bhagavan, Sarva Bhuteshu, he is there in each and every living entity. He is there along with the individual soul in everyone's body. So how is this perceived? Lakshitaha swatmanaha. So this fact is perceived. How? And by hypothesis, hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from intelligence. How can we know this? Only by intelligence. Drashta means one who sees by intelligence. That Lord is seated in everyone's heart. Now, he is not seen, but he can be understood. He can be understood only by intelligence. Bhagavan Sarvabhuteshu is residing in everyone's heart. Okay. Aruna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Bhagavan Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshita Swatmana Harihi Drishtair Buddhyadibir Drishta Lakshanair Anumapakair. Translation: the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The general argument of the common man is that since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can one either surrender unto him or render transcendental loving service unto him? To such a common man, here is practical suggestion given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Actually, the Lord is not perceivable by our present materialized senses, but when one is convinced of the presence of Lord by a practical service attitude, there is revelation by the Lord's mercy, and such a pure devotee of the Lord can perceive the Lord's presence always and everywhere. He can perceive that intelligence. He can perceive that intelligence is the form, direction of the Paramatma, plenary portion of the personality of Godhead. The presence of Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, and even for the common man. The procedure is as follows. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. He may not feel it very abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that hand, the leg, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels, but as such hand, leg, the head, etc. cannot be identified with his self, Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish the separate his self from the other things that he sees. So the natural conclusion is that living being, either man or beast, is a seer, and he sees besides himself all other things. So there is a difference between the seer and the seen. Now, by a little use of intelligence, we can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or move independently. Okay. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. Our senses of perception and of action, that is to say, our five perceptive senses, hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell, as well as our five senses of action, namely hands, legs, speech, evacuation organs, and reproductive organs, and our three subtle senses, namely mind, intelligence, and ego, 13 senses in all, are supplied to us by various arrangements of gross and subtle forms of natural energy. And it is equally evident that as objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. And this conclusively proves that the ordinary living being is no independent power of perception or of motion, and we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by nature's energy. We conclude that he who sees his spirit senses are senses as well as the objects of perfection are material. The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence. That is the difference between spirit and matter. There are some less intelligent arguments that matter develops the power of seeing and moving as a certain organic development. But such an argument cannot be accepted because there is no experimental evidence that the matter has anywhere produced a living entity. Trust no future, however pleasant, idle talks regarding future development of matter into spirit are actually foolish because no matter has ever developed the power of seeing or moving in any part of the world. Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are two different identities, and this conclusion is arrived at by use of intelligence. Now we come to the point that the things which are seen by little use of intelligence cannot be animate unless we accept someone as the user or of the director of the intelligence. The intelligence gives one direction like some higher authority, and the living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. When one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a deranged man, and so a living being is dependent on intelligence or the direction of a superior being. Such intelligence is all pervading. Every living being has his intelligence, and this intelligence, being the direction of some higher authority, is just like a father giving direction to his son. The higher authority who is present and residing within every individual being is the super self. Should I continue, Mutaji?
Wait. Now, if you go back to 33rd verse, very clearly it has been said there is no other auspicious path. That means to attain prema for Krishna, there is no other auspicious path. Now, unchanging Lord reviewed 3 times Bhagavan Brahma. So Lord, when he incarnates as Brahma, Kalavatara, he intentionally reviewed it. It is not studying, it is reviewing 3 times. And determining, yes, this is only by intelligence a person can attain to the level of prema. Now, there are ways to attain liberation. One is One is Jnana Yoga, one is Dhyana Yoga. And your Bhakti Yoga is surpasses all, because there is no other auspicious path. Very clearly it has been said. Now there are other two paths, that is Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga. For that it has been said here that only by intelligence a person can see himself. How is he going to be self-realized? Without understanding one's position with Krishna, without understanding that I am servant of Lord, it is impossible to see oneself also. When you say by intelligence he sees Paramatma, who is Paramatma? Paramatma is Lord himself. How is he seeing? How he can say? Because Paramatma is very impersonal, the subtlest of the subtle. So seeing oneself, seeing Paramatma, how self-realization is going to be possible? That is why it has been clearly said, Bhagavan Sarva Bhuteshu. Lord is there in everyone's heart. This is only possible by intelligence, and intelligence means understanding our position, our constitutional position. So spiritual quality of the seer is manifested in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence. Very important. The dissatisfaction in material life can make a person advance in spiritual life. There are two ways of understanding this. Dissatisfaction in material life will make a person more greedy. But if I have to grow in spiritual life, one should have dissatisfaction in material life also. That dissatisfaction is the highest dissatisfaction. So here there are some less intelligent people who argue that matter develops from the power of seeing, moving as a certain organic development. So there are scientists who say that this matter is developing within the body. That is how at one stage it develops life consciousness. Already Jiva is transmitted through the semen in the womb of a mother. That is how the matter grows, because our matter is made to grow just because of the presence of spirit soul. It is not matter grows, then spirit soul enters. Matter is made to move. That is why Parashakti, in the count of Parashakti, we have Jiva Shakti. Apareyam itastvanyam Jiva Bhutam Maha. Apareyam itastvanyam. Krishna says, when Bhumira Punalo Vayu, that verse is there. Afterwards, which verse is there? Which verse is there? Apareyam itastvanyam. Jiva Bhutam. This Jiva Bhuta is the Parashakti of Lord. That is why Vyasa says, if you see in the first canto, Vyasa says, Paropi Manute Anartham. Paro, Apihi, though Parashakti, but he has forgotten. That is why entangled in the matter. So matter and spirit, they are two different identities. This conclusion is arrived only by intelligence. So now we come to the point that the things which are seen by a little use of intelligence cannot be animate unless we accept someone as the user or the director of the intelligence. There is somebody who is using intelligence come in Jada Shakti, Jada Brahman, counted in matter. How this intelligence can be activated? Only by Parashakti. How intelligence gives one direction, like some higher authority, and the living entity cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. When one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a degraded man. Intelligence is said to be the next door neighbor of the soul, Srila Prabhupada says. So intelligence is the driver and the passenger is the soul. Now with the help of intelligence, now see both are relating to each other. Because Bhumira Bonalo Vayu Kammano Buddhi Revacha Ahankara iti Ahankara Tastvanyam. So Ahankara and Manabuddhi, these three things are subtle things. So intelligence is also coming in matter, but just because it is very near to the soul, next door neighbor, Prabhupada says. That means with the help of intelligence, the living entity can make progress. That means can control the mind, can use the senses in the service of Lord, because devotional service has been mentioned just 2 verses before. How a person can make progress, seeing Paramatma in everyone's heart, being compassionate to everyone, giving Hare Krishna Mahamantra to everyone. So if he is not using intelligence, he will degrade himself. Every living entity has its intelligence, and this intelligence, being the direction of some higher authority, is just like a father giving direction to his son. So to come to the stage of prema, even a jnani or a yogi has to use his intelligence and see Lord in everyone's heart. And with the help of intelligence, use the mind and the senses in the service of Lord. Very clearly, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes about it. With the intelligence, see oneself also. Seeing oneself is what? Seeing one's own position. Well, I am servant of Krishna, that is samadhi. Samyagadhyate asmin atmatatve tatmayam, that is samadhi. So seeing one's position. Seeing Lord means seeing, understanding Lord is master. I am servant. Seeing means what? You are going to see. Can we see? Do we have that eyes to see Lord? But Lord gives intelligence to see in every living entity's heart, there is one person. 2 persons, in fact. 2 persons are residing in every body. One is Jivatma, one is Paramatma. That is why Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shapakecha Panditaha Samadarshina. He becomes a Samadarshi because of his intelligence. And because of that Samadarshi, he has compassion with everyone. Because he is seeing Paramatma in everyone's heart. And that is hypothetically, all these things have been given. Okay. Further, Ravindra Prabhu, read. Ravindra Sachipitra Prabhu, read.
Yeah, at this point in our investigation, we may consider the following question. On the one hand, we realize that all our perception and activities are conditioned by arrangements of material nature. Yet, we also ordinarily feel and say, I am perceiving, I am doing. Therefore, we can say that our material senses of perception and action are moving because we are identifying the self of the material body. And that the superior principle of super self is guiding and supplying us according to our desire. By taking advantage of the guidance of super self in the form of intelligence, by taking advantage of the guidance of super self in the form of intelligence, we can either continue to study and to put into practice our conclusion that I am not this body, or we can choose to remain in the false material identification, fancying ourselves to be the possessors and doers. Our freedom consists in orienting our desire either towards the ignorant material misconception or the true spiritual conception. We can easily attain to the true spiritual conception by recognizing the super self, that is Paramatma, to be our friend and guide, and by dovetailing our intelligence with the superior intelligence of Paramatma. The super self and the individual self are both spirit, and therefore the super self and the individual self are both qualitatively one and distinct from matter. But the super self and the individual self cannot be on equal level, because the super self gives direction or supplies intelligence, and the individual self just follows the direction, and thus actions are performed properly. The individual is completely dependent on the direction of the super soul, because in every step the individual self follows the direction of the super self in the matter of seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, willing, etc. So far as common sense is concerned, we come to the conclusion that there are 3 identities, namely matter, spirit, and super spirit. Now, if we go to the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that all 3 identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and the super spirit, are all dependent upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The super self is partial representation or plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead dominates all over the material world. The Supreme Personality of Godhead dominates all over the material world by his partial representation of it. God is great, and he cannot be simply an order supplier of the individual self. Therefore, the super self cannot be a full representation of the supreme self, Sushotama, the absolute personality of Godhead. Realization of the super self by the individual self is the beginning of self-realization. And by the progress of such self-realization, one is able to realize the supreme personality of Godhead by intelligence, by the help of authorized scripture, and principally by the grace of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary conception of the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam is a further explanation of the science of Godhead. So if we stick to our determination and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence, sitting within the same bodily tree like a bird sitting with another bird, as explained in the Upanishad, certainly the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas becomes clear to our vision. And there is no difficulty in realizing the supreme personality of Godhead Vasudeva. The intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva, as confirmed by Bhagavad Gita 7.1. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva. Bhavanam Janmanamante Jnanamanvan Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. So in this way, after many births, Bhagavad Gita is a preliminary conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavatam is further explanation. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us what to do. Bhagavatam teaches us how to do. Chaitanya Charitamrita teaches us why to do. Okay. Tasma sarvatmana rajan hari sarvatra sarvada shottavya kirtitavyascha smartavyo bhagavanunam. Tasma sarvatmana rajan hari sarvatra sarvada shottavya kirtitavyascha smartavyo bhagavanunam. So King Tasmat, therefore, whenever this word Tasmat comes, understand this therefore, api, even though. These words now it should be familiar. Tasmat parataram devi, tadiyanam samarchanam, aradhananam api sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam param, tasmat parataram devi, tadiyanam samarchanam. There also Tasmat word is a Tasmat with therefore. So here also Tasma Sarvatmana Rajan, Sarvatmana, O Rajan, is essential for every living entity. Sarvatraha Sarvadaha Shruttavyaha. Sarvatraha Sarvada. The Lord who is residing in everywhere as Brahman, as Paramatma. Shruttavyaha Kirtidavyasya. Hear about him, glorify him, remember him, Bhagavan Nunam. When you say Bhagavan, immediately personality is to be understood. He is residing everywhere. He is Bhagavan. Bhagavan means he is a person, personality of God, supreme personality of God. Prabhupada intentionally doesn't write just God. He says personality of God. That person who has a wonderful personality with all wonderful qualities, all qualities in full Aishwarya Samagrasya Virya Sesha Sashtriya, Jnana Vairaga Yascheva Shannam Bhagaitin Gana, that person is residing everywhere. That is why Bahunam Janmanavante Jnanavanman Prapatite Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha Vasudeva Vijutta Sattvam Vasudeva Shabditam Bhagavan Sarvam iti Vasati Vasudeva Sarvam iti Vasati Vasudeva. So Paramatma Vasati iti Sarvatraha Vasudeva Brahman. So in this way he is residing, he is localized aspects, he is residing in everyone's heart. At the same time, he is residing in each and every atom, molecule, with Jala Brahman. Okay, Brahman aspect has been spoken. Lord is residing in everyone's heart, Paramatma. Lord is residing everywhere, Brahman aspect, and he has a wonderful personality. So how to understand this? Glorify, remember, Shottavya, speak about, Shottavya, hear about him. Even in the first canto Bhagavatam we had, what's the word? Shottavya Kirtavya Shadheya Pujascha Ityada. Nice word. Second canto. Open. First canto, second chapter. Open. एकेन मनसः भगवान् सात्वतां पति श्रोतव्य कीर्तितव्य श्रद्धेय पूज्यश्च नित्यता
माताजी तस्मादेकेन मनसा
तस्मादेकेन मनसः
भगवान्
that was the tasmat
सात्वतां
only. तस्मादेकेन मनसः भगवान् सात्वतां पति. Again, therefore, with one pointed attention, four things have been told. Shrottavya kirtitavya shraddheya pujaschcha. Here what has been shown, Shrottavya kirtitavya smartavya. Now Deya Puja Shraddheya means Smartavya. Pujaschcha. Okay.
Mataji, even in first chapter, the Tasmad words comes. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma, Bhagwan Ishwarari.
Yes. Okay. Now you read these words. Very attractive to Tasmat now. So you only read the verse.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna, Danat Pranam. Shloka 36. Tasmat Sarvatma Rajana, Hari Sarvatra
Rajana.
Sarvada.
What is this Rajana? Tasma Sarvatmana Rajan. It is not na. It is
Yes, Mataji. Tasmat Sarvatma Rajan, Hari Sarvatra.
Read again.
Tasmat Sarvatmana Rajan, Harihi Sarvatra Sarvada.
What? Hari Sarvatra Sarvada. Read properly.
Yes, Mataji. Tasmat Sarvatma Rajan, Hari.
Again, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Tasmat Sarvatma Rajan,
What?
Hari Sarvatra.
Sarvatmana. Full it is there, na? Sarvatmana. Sarvatmana. What happened to you?
Mataji, मेरी बुक में सर्वत्र लिखा है.
Aruna, read.
Hare Krishna. Tasmat sarvatmana rajan hari sarvatra sarvada shrotavya kirtitavyascha smartavyo bhagavan drinam. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Now reading part Raksha Mataji do.
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, may I read, recite one second? Okay.
Now you read translation fast.
Okay. O King, it is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify and remember the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead always and everywhere. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai ho. Srila Sukdev Goswami begins this verse with the word tasmat or therefore, because in the previous verse he has already explained that there is no auspicious means for salvation other than the sublime process of Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakti Yoga process is practiced by the devotees in different methods like hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping, praying, rendering service in love, becoming friendly and offering all that one may possess. All 9 methods are bona fide methods, and either all of them, some of them, or even one of them can bring about the desired result for the sincere devotee. But out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the method of practice. And for hearing only, all the Vedic literatures are there, compiled by authorized persons like Vyasadeva, who is the powerful incarnation of Godhead. And since it has been ascertained that the Lord is the super soul of everything, he should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. That is the special duty of the human being. When the human being gives up the process of hearing about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, he becomes victim of hearing rubbish transmitted by man-made machines. Machinery is not bad because through the machine one can take advantage of hearing about the Lord. But because machinery is used for ulterior purpose, it is creating rapid degradation in the standard of human civilization. It is said here that it is incumbent upon the human beings to hear because the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are made for the purpose. Living beings other than human beings have no ability to hear such Vedic literature. If human society gives itself to the process of hearing, the Vedic literature, it will not become a victim to be impious sounds vibrated by impious men who degrade the standards of the total society. Hearing is solidified by process of chanting. One who has perfectly heard from the perfect source becomes convinced about the all-pervading personality of Godhead and thus becomes enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. All the great acharyas, sorry, my tablet, मेरा tablet बंद हो गया. हाँ, all tablet बंद हो गया. Sorry, माता. All the great acharyas like Ramanuja, Madhava, Chaitanya, Saraswati Thakur, or even in other countries, Muhammad, Chris, and others have all extensively glorified the Lord by chanting always and in every place. Because the Lord is all pervading, it is essential to glorify Him always and everywhere. In the process of glorifying the Lord, there should be no restriction of time and space. This is called Sanatan Dharma or Bhagavad Dharma. Sanatan means eternal, always and everywhere. माताजी मेरा बंद हो जाता है.
Okay, continue. Aruna, continue.
Bhagavata means pertaining to Bhagavan,
Why
the
don't you
Lord.
hold a book, Raksha Mataji? You should have a book with you.
माताजी, I have Gujarati Bhagavatam and
You purchase on English Bhagavatam. You purchase English Bhagavatam and study with English Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam book should be there, tablet and all. That will cheat us.
I have Gujarati Bhagavatam, that's why.
You want take English Bhagavatam also. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
The Lord is the master of all time and all space, and therefore the Lord's holy name must be heard, glorified, and remembered everywhere in the world. That will bring about the desired peace and prosperity so eagerly awaited by the people of the world. The word cha includes all the remaining processes or methods of Bhakti Yoga as mentioned above. Hare Krishna.
Okay. पिबन्ति ये भगवत आत्मनः सतां तथामृतं श्रवणपुटेषु संभृतं पुनन्ति ते विषय विदुषिताशयं व्रजन्ति तच्चरण सरोरुहान्तिकम् पिबन्ति ये भगवत आत्मनः सतां कथामृतं श्रवणपुटेषु संभृतं पुनन्ति ते विषयविदूषिताशयं व्रजन्ति तच्चरणसरोरुहान्तिकम्. Beautiful verse. Pibanti ye, drink. Pibanti, one who learns to drink by oral reception. Bhagavataha, how Krishna's glories are drunk through years. 3 years. Pibanti ye Bhagavata Atmanah Satam. He is very dear to the Satam, devotees. Kathamrutam. So this Kathamrutam is drunk through the ears, nectar of the messages. Shravana Puteshu, ear holes. Samrutam. When it is fully filled, then Punanti te Vishayaha, he becomes purified. He becomes purified from all the Vishaya Vastu. Vidushita Ashayam, polluted aim of life. He becomes free from all these things, material enjoyment, polluted aim of life. Brajanti tad charana saroru antikam. Brajanti, in the mood of Vrajavasis. Brajanti, or he can go back. Mamekam sharanam braja. Brajanti tad charana saroru antikam. Then he can go to the lotus feet of Lord. He can attain the lotus feet of Lord. Saroru antikam. He can be situated near the lotus feet of Lord. Kinkaram. That means like a dust. I am just a servant. Ainanda tanuja. Kinkaram. Patitam mam vishame bhavam budham. Chant the verse. Ainandatam jakinkaram. Chant.
Ainandatanuja kinkaram vishamem bhavam budau.
Vishame bhavam budham.
कृपया तव पाद पंकज चिततुली
Tulit sadrusham vichintayah.
Kripaya tava pada pankaja
पंकज
saroruha. So pada pankaja dhuli sadrusham vichintaya. Dhuli. So here also the same thing has been told. But to attain the lotus feet, what is the only way? Drinking, hearing. The more we hear, Nitya Shuddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kabulaya Shravana Adi Shuddha Chitta Karaya Udaya. The more we hear Shravanam, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, everybody has this Krishna Prema. The only problem is we have forgotten. The more we hear, So who has that inclination to hear? Devotees. Only very fortunate soul, Bhagyavan, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva, Kulu Krishna Prasad Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. Now YouTube is available for everyone. How many of them really hear? So it is not so easy also to hear. That Bhagya also should be there. The Bhagya is there to hear, then that our ear holes are filled with Krishna Katha nectar, Amrutam, Krishna Amrutam, Krishna Katha Amrutam. Then when it is filled with nectar, automatically one purifies his polluted consciousness, purifies his material conception of life, and thus he can be situated dhuli, like a dust at the lotus feet of Krishna. Okay. Venkatesh Avatar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. पिबन्ति ये भगवत आत्मना सताम कथामृतं श्रवणपुटेषु सम्भृतं पुनन्ति ते विषया विदूषिताशयं व्रजन्ति चरणसरोरुहान्तिकम्. Translation. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of the life known as a material enjoyment and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Purport, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The suffering of human society are due to the polluted life, aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. The more human society engage in the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for the sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusionary material energy of the Lord. And thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. The human necessities of the life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of the food, grain, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetable, etc. in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human race of the world as well as the living being on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete and only a little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into the proper channel. So there is no need of machine and tools or huge steel plants for artificially creating the comforts of life. So life is never made comfortable by artificial need, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Shukadeva Goswami, namely sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. For men in this age of Kali, when they have lost the perfect vision of the life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on the Kathamrutam mentioned in this verse that identified Srimad Bhagavatam to the nectarian message of the personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over matter, will subside. And the people in general, all parts of the world, will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topics in relation with his name, fame, quality, and touch etc., are all pleasing, and because such topics have been approved by the great devotee like Narada, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavan. Certainly, such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by the constant hearing of the message of Sri Bhagavad Gita and the later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Shukdev Goswami that he will be reached the personality of Godhead and rendered him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavan, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of Bhakti Yoga directly accepted, as suggested in this verse, by sufficient hearing of the transcendental message of the Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without one's attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat conception of the Lord. And by preaching and by practicing Bhakti Yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo devotee. Or for such an imposter, there is no remedy for being freed from the material entanglement. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of second canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled "The Lord in the Heart." Hare Krishna.
Next 4 days, continuously morning again. The third chapter will be completed. 8 verses per day, or maybe 6 days continuously morning hours. We'll not be having Chaitanya Bhagavat class in the morning. We'll be having 8 to 9. Is it okay with everyone? Because third chapter has to be completed. Your exam will be 19th and 20th. Or maybe you can postpone that little ahead. 20. Okay, 26th and 27th we can keep. But let me finish third chapter. So just write in the group, Chaitanya Bhagavat class will not be there. 8 to 9 will have continuously, maybe 5 days we'll finish up. Tomorrow, I don't know. Tomorrow I have to go to Boise. Tuesday onwards. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 5 days.
Mataji, in between your Dwarka Yatra, na Mataji?
We are starting
12.
on Saturday now. That is 12th. So morning hours we can have. We'll try to complete now.
Yes, Mataji.
We'll try to complete this portion. And if and some verses we can do in the evening also, Tuesday, Thursdays. So you will have total how many classes? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 5 plus down 2.
2.
That means 7 classes.
7.
And how many verses are there? 25 verses are. Easy to complete. 25 verses. So we need not have to rush about. Peacefully we can do. Suppose we are completing on Friday, then Saturday no class. Okay. So this week is only for Bhakti Vaibhav, part 2. Any questions? No questions. Okay, we'll end here. Aruna Mataji, just put the message in the group.
Okay, madam. Yes.